We define our purpose when we start to look back over our lives. And maybe that's why it's harder for us when we're young, because we don't have as far to look back. Can we do it?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Influential Women Podcast. We're here to empower, to connect, and to inspire. This time is for women who are leading, creating, and redefining what is possible. I'm your host, Jodie O'Brien, and today we are joined by someone who is warm, she is wise, and she brings a lifetime of real experience to the mic. We're here with Wendy Green. She's the founder of Boomer Banter, a life coach, a storyteller, and a champion for embracing the second half of our life with curiosity, with confidence, and with joy. Wendy helps people navigate these transitions. She helps us rewrite the narrative and step boldly into whatever comes next. Today's conversation is all about aging, so get ready, not the superficial kind, but the real and emotional layers of it. How we evolve, how we shift our careers, and how life moves quickly, and how we can discover new versions of ourselves at every age. Influential Women's mission, of course, is to give women a platform to share their stories, amplify their voices, and recognize that influence has no age limit. Wendy's work aligns beautifully with that because she reminds us that purpose is not something that we chase. Often it's something that actually finds us. So let's dive in with Wendy Green. Wendy, welcome.
Jodie, thank you. What a beautiful introduction.
Well, it is such a joy to have you with us today. I just want to sit at your feet and soak up some of these lessons for sure.
Well, I am not encouraging you to sit at my feet. Sit by my side and let's learn together.
Let's do it. So, Wendy, your work helps people navigate what comes next. How did you first find yourself, though, doing this? And what in you helped people move towards this season of change for them?
You know, I discovered that helping people was something I have really just done all my life without realizing it. It wasn't always a job description, but it was something that I just navigated myself to. And when the pandemic hit, I had been president of my Rotary Club. I had been director of a learning center. I had been in training and development all my life. I also then had done coaching for people in career transitions. And I knew intimately how difficult it is to find a new job when you suddenly hit that big 5-0, 6-0, whoa, you know. So when the pandemic shut us down, I started to think, well, all of these people that were going to be losing their jobs because, you know, everybody was getting laid off. And many of the people that were really impacted were the older adults. And I wanted them to know it's not the end. We're not done. There's still so much more that we have to do, that we can give. We've got life experience that is so valuable. And so my idea was to, encourage people to be able to do that. I, Jodie, did not know about podcasting back in 2020. I knew about Facebook Live. I knew about being on TV. I used to do a lot of interviews, but I didn't know about podcasting. So I thought, well, I'll do a Facebook Live. And had a few guests, and somebody told me, oh, guess what? You can live stream Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Okay, cool. I'll do that. Reach a bigger audience. And then I realized you could downstream that recording and put it out to all the podcasts and reach an even bigger audience. So that's how I got into this whole podcasting arena, trying to help people recognize that life at this stage, it's just another stage, We grow up, we start in elementary school, and then we transition to high school, and then we transition to college, and then we transition to careers. Our lives are a series of that. So this is just another transition, another stage of life.
Well, one of the things that you really normalize, which I don't know how many people out there are doing, is how to beautifully age. You do that on the Boomer Banter, and you talk about the emotional side of aging. What do you think younger women get wrong about aging?
And it's not their fault. Ageism is so prevalent in our society today. You watch the news, you watch the ads. What do you see? Use this facial product and you're going to reduce wrinkles. Use this product and your hair is going to be shiny and, you're going to cover the gray. Well, I know a lot of women during the pandemic just said, screw it, I'm going gray. Mine is trying. It's not
I
there
have
yet.
one. One's right here. I mean, I have more, but I know I have one right here, like a unicorn.
Yeah, no, I'm ready because I'm 72, Jodie, and I'm like, come on, but it's okay. But I think younger women start to look at aging and they see decline. They look out on the horizon and they say, I'm vibrant now and I'm sexy now, or I'm a great mom now, or I'm all these things. And they think all of those go away when you hit this magic number, whatever it is, 50, 60, 70. And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't go away. It may change some, but we are still sexy. We are still smart. We are still engaged. We are mothers in a different way. We are leaders in companies. We are leaders in our own lives. There is no limit to our potential. I used to end my show by saying, you are never too old to set another dream or set a new goal. And I believe that. I think we get in our own ways, Jodie, when we start to tell ourselves this story of, oh my gosh, I'm running out of time. Oh my gosh, I'm too old. Oh my gosh, I don't want to be 60 or 70. But that's an ageist thought, be your alternative. You're lucky when you get there, right? Your alternative is to not be here. So you want to get to that 60 or 70. And I think the other thing, Jodie, is we have this youth culture, I'm supposed to look young, however we define young. And we believe that a few wrinkles in our face or a couple of extra pounds on our bodies, which happens with menopause, I'm here to tell you, is going to just reduce our appeal, involvement in life. And it's not true. It's not true. I'm here to tell you, I'm surrounded by amazing women that inspire me every day from their 40s and 50s up to their 80s and 90s. In fact, I interviewed somebody the other day. She was 105 and she's writing another book. I know.
Wow.
So we're not done until we're done.
Well, I remember an episode of Oprah. I don't know if you remember this. It was decades ago. And it was a birthday episode when she said, "This is the best year yet." She's like, "I've never felt so good." And so as women, I think about that episode often, by the way, but as women, we often feel like time is chasing us, especially with our careers. Why do you think that we fear aging so much, even though so many older women say, "Oh, it gets better. You just wait"?
I think we put a lot of expectation on ourselves. So my generation was really very involved in the women's movement and, getting equal pay for equal work or we're getting there. We're not there yet, but getting there. But that was a big thing, getting the rights to make decisions for our own health choices. That has changed some too. But we felt that we had to pave this path for younger women to have opportunities. In fact, I bet a lot of your younger women don't even know that when I wanted to apply for a credit card, I was not able to apply for a credit card as a single woman. These are some of the things that have changed because of the work we did back in the 70s. So Now I believe there is this sense of I have to be so competitive in the workforce that sometimes, I may be wrong on this because I'm not a young woman anymore, but I do think there's this idea that we have to be so competitive in the workforce that maybe we even lose some of our femininity, which is a great trait, characteristic to bring into the workforce. And women don't always promote themselves as well as the men that they're working with. And so they may not get all the opportunities that they see some of the men getting. And so they are feeling like they're still pedaling uphill, I think.
Yeah, we feel that way.
Okay.
I
All
think
right.
we feel that way. And I think, too, there's such a discussion to be had about femininity in the workplace, because I remember a time where, dressing feminine was difficult. I wanted to be respected. I wanted to be in that circle. When I attended a Rotary meeting, I wanted to make sure that I had my suit on, but that my shirt was buttoned up, that there
Mhm.
was no inkling, or even that I didn't have on the brightest lipstick that day, which is crazy.
Yep.
But there is this push and pull with how feminine you should be in a workplace, what's appropriate, but what's empowering. Can I still be empowered when I have on my bright red lipstick and I walk in and own the room with that femininity? It's difficult. I think it's been difficult for young women, and it's definitely a conversation to have. And that is separate from age, right? The
It is.
age part of it is huge. And then there's this other
So,
topic.
and I'm glad you said that because I think that sometimes maybe where the disconnect comes in. When we're young, we feel like we have something to prove. Right? So if you walk in with that red lipstick or that pretty pink dress, you're wondering, are they taking me seriously? Have I proven myself to be on an equal footing with them if I'm not in that black suit with, my hair pulled back? I think when we get older, we're over that. We don't have to prove ourselves to anyone anymore. We know who we are. We know how competent we are. We feel that sense of confidence, and we're just not worried about it. If you don't like us, that's your problem. Too bad.
That's right. Though, I think that's what Oprah was saying that day. I honestly do. I think Oprah that day was like, screw it. I'm
That's
going to be
right.
who I'm going to be. And this is the best I've ever felt because I don't care anymore. And I think at 40, 45, I'm just starting to feel that. And I know other women out there today are going to resonate with this conversation. It's like, oh, we are just starting to feel that kind of confidence. We can be ourselves. And so I guess my next question for you is about purpose,
Mm,
because a lot of us have been at a crossroads. As you know, career wise, people change career like they change their underwear now.
that's right.
And a lot of us have had a point where, okay, we're transitioning, we're pivoting. What in the world is our purpose? I remember being frozen a few years ago thinking, I have no idea. I know I have this skill. I know I have this skill. I have no idea what to do. And so I love how you say on your podcast that purpose often whispers before it shouts. So, how can we as women start listening for those whispers, especially when we feel stuck?
Uh, What a great question, because I think it happens more than once. I think we define our purpose when we start to look back over our lives, and maybe that's why it's harder for us when we're young, because we don't have as far to look back. So when I looked back and I saw that when I was 16 or 17, I wanted to be a page in the United States Senate. They did not allow girl pages. And so I went on this campaign with my dad's help. We advocated for that, and I became a page in the Florida State Senate. It was the very next year that they allowed girls to be pages in Washington. So I was like, what was it about that? I just felt like I should have that opportunity too. I was advocating for all the girls, right? When my kids were in school, I kept advocating for them. Long story, I don't want to go into it now, but there was a lot of things that the school system, who's dealing with hundreds of kids, didn't want to make the changes for one or two kids. And I was like, okay, so I was still advocating back then. I got my degree in computer science, did not like programming. That was not my thing at all. But I found opportunities, like I would raise my hand. Oh, a customer needs training. I'll do that, you know. And I started to get out in front of people and seeing the light bulb moments when you would explain how something was going to make their lives better. Oh, I like helping. I like teaching. And that moved me into the coaching arena. And now with the podcast, so I think the transition of looking back at your life and seeing those moments when you go, oh, yeah, that's when I really felt good about what I was doing. And I couldn't not do it. It was like it just drew me to it. And then I felt really good about it. And then, of course, life happens. I got to make a living. You find yourself in something else. But even in that situation, a lot of times you find, oh, wait, I could do that, knowing that that is something that's going to be good for you, whether it's in your workforce or outside in some other organization like Rotary or some kind of volunteer thing. And you almost can't help it. And when you start to notice those kinds of things happening where you're saying, well, maybe that's taking a lot of time. Maybe I shouldn't do that. But you're going to do it because it makes you feel good. And that's when I think you start to listen to find your purpose. Maybe my sister is an artist. She cannot help herself. She comes to visit me, Jodie, with box full of toys, crafts, art supplies, because she can't help it. She can't just sit there with me and have a conversation. She has to be doing something.
Yeah.
That's when we know, oh, yeah, that's a big part of my purpose.
I think it's incredibly hard to listen to your intuition or trust your intuition when you're young.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as we get older, we lean into who we really are,
I think that's so true.
We just do. We lean into it. So what have you learned about the beauty in starting over? Because you've reinvented yourself many times, both personally and professionally. So how has it shaped your own identity and your own growth?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I think reinvention takes a lot of courage and a lot of resilience. I think it takes courage because the external voices that you're hearing are, well, that's not what your degree is in. Well, you may not make any money doing that. Why would you make that change now? You have all these responsibilities. And if you have taken the time to stop and listen to yourself and to find what lights you up, and it may be going from a big corporate job to a nonprofit, right? It may be, I just need a break. And there's a lot of study about that now for young people that if you're going to work, because we're going to live to 100, if you're going to work till
105,
105,
right? Yeah.
So if you're going to work till you're 70, 75, even 80, you're going to need breaks in there. And maybe that's part of what your next reinvention is going to be. It's going to be like, you know what? I'm just going to take a year and travel. I'm just going to take a year and write my book, or it's having the courage to do those things in spite of what the outside world is telling you is okay. Because the world has changed. And so, yes, your choices will change and your choices will grow. I mean, like I said, in 2020, I didn't know anything about podcasting. I sure didn't grow up saying, I'm going to be a podcast host. And then resilience, you have to be able to be prepared to take the risk and be prepared to pivot if that risk doesn't work out the way you want it to, because it doesn't always. And I think every time you go through one of those experiences of trying something new, taking the risk, and then the lessons that you've learned, the confidence you've gained, the resilience that you've gained, those are kinds of the things that are going to shape you and carry you through. And certainly it has for me, because I've, like you said, and reinvented myself many times.
Well, when you look back at your career and your family, your sons, and now your grandchildren, what truly mattered most and what faded into the background with time?
Yeah, I have a son and a daughter, and two girls and two boys, grandchildren, and my mother, who is 95, and I'm still caring for her in some ways. And I think letting people know that you love them is really the biggest thing. At the end of the day, you can have a career, you can have a title, and I think all of that is important. It makes us part of who we are. And as I was going through my career, I used to think, I want to be a good role model for my kids. I want them to see that women can be successful and not just be mommies. I was a single mom for most of their life. I wanted them to see that that was possible. So being a good role model, but it all revolved around my relationship with them. And those of you that have younger kids now or teenage kids, it changes. Oh my gosh. Think about yourself as an adult and your mom calls and goes, "Oh, how are you? Oh, be sure to put your coat on. It's a little cold out. Don't do that." And you're like, "Mom, I'm a grown up now." Right. And so we have to shift our relationship with our grown children. But at the end of the day, oh my gosh, there is nothing I am more grateful for than to have been their mom. And now to have these four amazing grandchildren and to be involved in their lives. I moved from the DC area down here to Greenville, South Carolina, to be more involved in their lives because they're all up in Asheville, which is an hour from here. Family to me is really precious and it's not always easy. It is not always easy. We watch Hallmark movies and it all looks lovely, but it's not.
It's not always pretty.
Yeah.
I guess one of the questions I have too is you balancing, your devotion to family, your devotion to career, and your devotion to yourself, and how you've been able to balance those things. And looking back on it, a lot of us make decisions based on the need at the time. Maybe we pour too much of ourselves into work and we miss out on family moments, or maybe we're mom heavy and we think we're missing out. So how have you been able to balance those things? And especially being a caregiver, add that to the mix.
You do the best you can do. It's not easy. It is not easy. And in fact, I was looking back at some things I've written in the past and talking about vitality and energy and what sucks our energy away and what builds it back up again, as we all do, right? Sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves as moms to be the best mom that we can be. And you hit the bed and you're exhausted, right? And then you get to my age and you're like, okay, so my mom still needs me. And I'll be sitting here writing, doing some creative work, and the phone rings and she needs something. All right. And it's a matter for me, it's a matter of taking a breath and going, okay, where are your priorities right now, Wendy? And it's a hard, hard question to answer sometimes because you have a deadline and you have responsibility to your family and you might have responsibility to your aging parent. And it's just, I wish I had an easy answer for you. It's not easy. It's not. And it's something that we as women, I think, take on a lot more of it. Partly because we are able to.
We can do it all.
We can do it all. I used to be in the computer field and I would be like the only woman in the room. And those men could sit there at the table, singularly focused on what we were talking about. And I'm thinking, did I give them their lunch? Did they bring a coat to school? Like, what am I going to do for dinner? Oh God, what if the school calls and like you are so multitasking. And that's what we do. And so, yeah, trying to find the balance, but it's so important, go for that walk, take that bath, take a breath. 3 deep breaths can help a lot.
It's so hard, especially when you're in the trenches. I've said that so many times with the little ones. And then on the other side of it, you know how they say that those are the hardest years. And then someone else will say, no, it's when they're teenagers. Those are the hardest years. Yes, amen to that. Amen to that, I say. The teenage years are the hardest years. But aging, it changes us and it changes our friendships, our careers, and how really we see ourselves. So how would you say that we can prepare for those shifts in a healthy and grounded way?
So I just want to say, to start to answer this question, that we are all aging, right?
Mhm.
And so I think what your question really is as we get older, our friendships change or our careers change. And that's true. Part of it is just the path of life. You retire and you may move from where you've lived all your life. And so you have left behind some friendships. Sometimes we fall out of love with our friends because we've changed and they haven't, or they've changed and we haven't. And friendships become more difficult to find new friendships as you get older because a lot of your friends are made because of your children's sports activities or, what they were doing in school. And your friends were made through your work involvement. And so now all of a sudden, a lot of that is not part of your life existence. So trying to find friends becomes another challenge. I would say to prepare yourself for some of that is to really get to know yourself. Do some work on yourself. Become self-aware and constantly pay attention to feedback that you get. I just learned something about myself the other day through an interaction that I was having with my partner. And he pointed something out and I was like, gosh, you are so right. Darn it. No, but it was a good lesson. I needed to know that. And I think that if we stay aware of ourselves and what gives us a reason to get up in the morning, what excites us about the day. And the other thing, Jodie, would be gratitude. One of the things we talk about in coaching, when someone is really feeling down and disappointed with themselves, is to find 3 things each day that you could be grateful for. And when you're feeling down, that feels like an impossibility. But it doesn't have to be big things. It could be, I am so grateful that I have a bed to sleep in. I am grateful for my morning cup of coffee.
It tastes so good.
It tastes so good, right? I am grateful that the sun is out today. It doesn't have to be more than that, but shifting your focus to what you're grateful for and getting to know yourself are going to help you as you age or get older and navigate the changes that you're going to experience physically, mentally, emotionally, where you're living. Your children move away, all kinds of changes are going to happen. And if you know yourself and you practice gratitude, I think you're going to be grounded.
That's so beautifully said. Thank you for that little nugget of wisdom. Because I think, too, when you go through transitions, you don't know what you're doing, where you're going. You have almost that midlife happenstance. Having a grateful practice is necessary because it can feel like things are completely out of your control. And then, of course, as we approach perimenopause and menopause, oh my gosh, things are out of our control.
That's right.
Completely. So I love that. I love that grateful practice. And so, well, you know, here at Influential Women, we obviously, we have this show so that it impacts everyone. We have no age limit to what's possible here. So when in your life did you realize that your influence was still able to grow? Because you've talked about how you've been an advocate. And when did you realize, well, shoot, was it 2020? Well, shoot, I can be an advocate right here on this old podcast.
I think that really was when I realized, I mean, part of it was when I was president of the Rotary Club too. We did a lot of great work here in Greenville. And, I was leading that, and that felt really good. I started an organization in one of my companies that I worked for called the U.S. Expertise Center. And I was like, whoa, that was pretty cool. I guess in a lot of ways, I've always felt like I was influential. But certainly my focus, like I think one of the questions earlier about finding your purpose, and I said, well, it changes. When I was raising kids, my main purpose was raising the kids. I had a job, I had a career, all of that was important, but that was my main purpose, raising those children, because I felt like they have one chance to be children, you know. Now my purpose has shifted to advocating for and inspiring older adults that there's still a whole world ahead of you of things that you can do and things that you can try and experiences that you can have and shifts that you can make in your thinking that are going to allow you to live the kind of life that you want to live for the next 20 years. So I think that's now where my influence is, but I don't think it was just discovered in 2020. Yeah.
What's crazy is Boomer Banter is such a play on, hey, Boomer. And
That's right.
so it's so negative, right? It was so negative for so long. My kids loved to say that to me. I was like, I'm not even a boomer. Why are you saying that? Um, is there
Yeah.
another thing that you could say? But it was such a negative, it had such a negative connotation, and you've really turned it around. And what I love about that, too, is that it makes people think, no, you're not done. Your book isn't written. There's another chapter. What is that chapter? So I guess my question is, what advice do you have for someone who feels like, time's moving so fast. I'm running out of time. I'm running out of space. Is it too late to reinvent myself? Is it too late to have this pipe dream?
So I would first ask, how true is that? Are you really running out of time? Like, do you know that in the next 2 weeks you're done? No, probably not. Right?
Time's up. Time's
That's right.
up.
You don't know that. So let's assume that you have another 10, 15, 20, 30 years. If you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? Are you going to wait another 10 years and then say, oh gosh, now I'm running out of time? Well, guess what? You just lost 10 years of time you could be doing it. So, there's that whole thing. Well, I can't learn to play the piano now. I'm too old. Well, if you don't start now, you're going to be further behind than if you start next week or next year or 10 years from now. So start now. And who knows, in 10 years, gosh, maybe you'll be great, or maybe you'll just be playing the piano for fun. But it's all about the stories we tell ourselves, we tell ourselves we're running out of time. That's not true. You have as much time as you've been given on this planet. None of us know how much time that is. So take advantage of the time you have now and take that first step. That's just, don't stop yourself.
That's so good. So what are some of the first steps that we can take as women when we know that we want to change, but we have no idea where to even begin?
So we talked about this a little bit, is to go back over your life and really I mean, in my coaching practice, one of the things I have people do is write their life story. I give them, of course, questions and pointers because otherwise you're going to write a novel. But
Which could be, I mean, that could be your next step.
that could be your next step. But it's an exercise into looking at what you did along the way that made you feel really good, and then try to see where the thread is. And another thing I would say is get a coach, because here's the difference between a coach and a therapist. A therapist is, you have some kind of emotional neuroses that's getting in your way, and they're going to help you dig through that and get that cleaned out. A coach says, you know what, you're a very functional human being. You are really pretty good shape, but you're stuck and you want to go to that next level. So let's get you there. And the coach believes that you know what the answer is. It's just that you're not listening or you're stopping yourself because you're afraid. And so we help you work through that fear. We're your biggest cheerleader. We're also going to challenge you, and so I think you can get there on your own, but you probably get there faster with just a little bit of help and a little bit of a nudge.
Well, so what is this, the quiz that you give people as a coach? I'm so curious. Send it to me. What is keeping you stuck, this quiz? And because you help people identify like what's holding us back.
Right.
But what patterns do you most often see women navigating as they're taking that quiz?
So I think most people will take that quiz because they have reached a point where they're feeling they've lost their confidence. They've lost their way. So, maybe you've lost your job. There's a lot of layoffs going on now, right? So you go out there and you use your network and you're on Indeed and you're sending out all of your resumes and nothing. It's like crickets. And you really start to question yourself, gosh, am I really any good at these things? Can I really do that? How come nobody wants me? And it eats away at your confidence, which makes sense that it would do that. So in my What's Keeping You Stuck quiz, I identify 5 different types of stuckness, so it may be that you've just given up. You're just like, forget it. I'm going to sit on the couch and watch TV and maybe I'll make a pie, but you're not really motivated to anything. One may be the dreamer who is saying, I always wanted to write a book. Oh, I always wanted to start my own gym. Oh, I always wanted to. How am I going to do that? That's crazy. I can't do that. And so you start denying your dreams. There's fear that holds us back. There's the idea that we used to have these titles and now who am I without the title? So there's all these different stuck personas that we tend to hold on to as our truth. And they're not your truth. They're where you are stuck right now.
It's the story we tell ourselves.
It's the story we tell ourselves, 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
It's incredible. So if someone's listening today and maybe they're in that one frame of stuckness, as you say, they're in a story, they're stuck in their story. What is one small action that you would say they could take this week to feel more grounded in who they are and less stressed about running out of time and feeling like the clock is just ticking and they're stuck?
Take a pause and stop spending so much time alone. Because a lot of times when we get into that place, nobody wants to be around me right now. I'm a Debbie Downer and nobody wants to be around me. That's not true either. Start to listen to the stories you're telling yourself and then see if you can change them. Like nobody wants to be around me. How true is that? Call your friend. Ask them to go have coffee with you or lunch with you. Take your mind off yourself for a little bit and spend time with somebody else or help somebody else. And you might find that starts to rejuvenate you or at least gets you out of your own way for a little while. Listen to podcasts. that inspire you. There's so many good, inspiring podcasts now. Don't watch Facebook because
Get off.
everybody on Facebook has the perfect life. It's not true. But that's what they're going to show you, and that's going to make you feel even worse. So,
Well,
I
you
think
asked earlier, right? You said,
mhm,
well, Jodie, why are you afraid of aging? Let me ask you that. And I think social media doesn't help.
it does not
It
help.
just does not help. You look at yourself through the lens of comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy. I mean, it really is. And so, yeah, you got to take a social media break. I remember I took a year off when I was
Did
going
you?
through, I was going through a change of life, so to speak. I didn't know what I was going to do career-wise. I was frustrated. All the things that you said, all the things where you feel like you're not wanted, 200 applications on LinkedIn, like bad, bad,
Right?
stuck. And I would go and get in my garden to get grounded.
Perfect.
And it was perfect. And it's almost winter. So I get that you can't go dig in the garden. But yeah, and I think that taking a year off of Facebook and off of social media really helped me figure out, like, who am I? Let me figure out what my story actually is. Not the story I'm telling myself, but who I actually am. And then discovering my purpose again. So,
See,
yeah.
Jody, I knew you could walk beside me.
Not sit at your feet.
No, walk beside
Yeah.
me because that is so wise what you just said.
Yeah.
Finding who we are, what is our true story, and the not the story just that we've been telling ourselves, but that our parents and our teachers have been telling us also. All those shoulds. Jody, you used to be really good at this. That's what you should do.
Mhm.
Yeah, Dad, I don't want to do that. I don't like that.
Well, and you think the arena that you see outside of your four walls is on social media, and you think that's reality. And for me, going inward and being able to really take an honest look at myself and say, okay, well, if I'm really honest, this is what I love doing. And if I'm really honest, this is what I'm kind of good at. And if I'm really honest, this is what I would love to do.
That's beautiful. Good for
Um,
you.
yeah, but then when you reemerge, there's the whole reemerge situation. You got to stand firm in your confidence. But anyway, it's a story, but
So
you change the
when you
story
were
you tell
going through
yourself.
that, did you
Yeah.
journal? How did you kind of figure all that out?
Yeah, it's crazy. I was just thinking, I don't really know how I made it through. I look back and I think, I left that moment in the dust because once I found my purpose, I just let it propel me. But I think a few things helped. I think one was putting myself out there actually as a freelancer and saying, here's the skill set I have. What is it that you want? Can I help you? Is there a way that I can help you? And I think that has propelled my next shift here. That's landed me kind of where I'm at. So I think that was one thing that I did. I'm not going to lie, I went to therapy, right? You said a lot of things today that I've heard somebody say before. Yeah. And she's wise. And going into our story and dealing with like the trauma, the childhood trauma that is unresolved. There's a reason why my thinking patterns were the way that they were. And
Absolutely.
I needed to do some work. And there's no better time. Of course, you get to that point of crisis where you have to figure out, why are you stuck in this pattern? And what do I need to learn to move past it and to grow? And sometimes you do need to go to therapy. It's good. It's still good.
Therapy,
Yeah,
coaching, it's
it's
all
good.
good. It's all good. And I encourage journaling if you're so inclined.
Yeah.
I solve a lot of problems that way when I
Yeah.
journal. Yeah. So,
Well, you would laugh at me. I have an entire Rubbermaid tub full
huh?
of journals.
I I would not laugh at you.
So,
I have shelves full of
do
journals.
you? Yeah, well, and so during this crisis period, right, I actually didn't journal. I was like, no, not doing it. Like I don't have the energy to pick up a pen. But like I said, during, different moments in time, different moments in our life, we turn to different ways to organize that and survive. And so mine was gardening. I just dug in. I dug in the dirt. It was so grounding for me. So anyway, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you today, Wendy. I just want to thank you so much for sharing your stories and your wisdom and your perspective.
I have so enjoyed this, Jodie. You are a pleasure to talk to, easy to talk to, and so beautifully responsive and wise, too. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And you've just given us, of course, the ability to be more compassionate with ourselves. And I think that as we age is going to be something we need big time. Because when our bones start to ache, we're going to need a little compassion and empathy for ourselves.
That's right.
But it also has given us like this empowering way to think about aging, not as something to fear, but as an invitation to evolve and to step into deeper purpose, which, hello, Oprah has discovered, of course.
That's right.
So for everyone listening out there, you can learn more about Wendy's coaching work, her programs, and her beautiful podcast, Boomer Banter, by visiting her website or following her online. And of course, if you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review, or share it with a woman who inspires you. Maybe a fellow aging American that you know, right? An aging friend. Yeah, an older American. Every story shared, of course, strengthens the visibility of women everywhere. And that's exactly what this community is all about. So until next time, I'm Jodie O'Brien, and this was Influential Women. Keep showing up, keep growing, and keep leading courageously.
Can we do it?